Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this one I got from you straight out of Georgia again, but this time it's out of Clayton County, and it's jail. But before I get into that, I want to start off by saying, and I want you to see the analogy that in many instances, the temperament and how jailees are treated in our city jails and our county jails can give you a sort of example of how your city, county, and state government is being ran. What do I mean by that? If detainees are being treated inhumanely, and there is a lot of corruption going on in our city and county jails, let alone our prisons, many times those cities, and it can filter out into the states, have a lot of chaos and disruption. Because who runs the jails? Well, it's your local government, your mayor, your city councilman, your sheriff, your judges, your prosecutors. All are at the epitome of where our judicial standards lie in many of our cities. And I tell you all the time, we have to pay attention to our local politics, our city and our state's government, just as much as our national. And for example, there have been many issues at Cook County Jail in Chicago for decades. Look at what's happening with Chicago as a city, as a whole. It is falling apart. Look at New York City, Rikers Island, some of their city jails. There's been a lot of chaos and disruption in their jail system. Now you have Mayor Adams that's been indicted. New York has had its plethora of problems for years, whether it's the public safety of the subway, multiple assaults, property damage, gun violence. What about Los Angeles, LA County, another dangerous jail? Look at the entire state of California that's being decimated each and every day. And I'm telling you, if you can tell on how our city jails, our county jails are being run, and if they're correctional officers that are committing crimes, if there's a lot of assaults and there is a public safety issue with inmates, and or a public safety issue with correctional officers being understaffed, those are all issues that filter from the jail system out into our cities. And it gives you a temperament on how your city is being run. I recently did a story in Fulton County. Fulton County in Atlanta is having all kinds of issues, whether it's Fannie Willis's administration as the DA, the YSL case, and all kinds of corruption that's taking place throughout Atlanta with murders, drug issues, and those things alike. Remember, I did a video on Fulton County where they've had at least 10 detainees that have died within the last year. 10 inmates in the county jail, not prison. There's something going on in Atlanta proper. And now I have this story for you straight out of Clayton County Jail, which is part of Atlanta metropolitan area. So you got Fulton County and Clayton County. And let's talk about what's going on in Clayton County Jail here recently, where multiple staffers have been arrested at Georgia's Clayton County Jail. At least 8 to 10 employees. And let's talk about what's been going on down there. There's a lot of disruption and chaos in Atlanta proper, a lot. And many Black people want to move down there and think that's the utopian place to be in America. But there's a lot going on that's not all positive. So 8 employees were arrested at Georgia's Clayton County Jail in 2023. 8, including guard Jalen Clausell. He was taken in 5 days after Sheriff Levon Allen said the guard let 4 detainees assault a 5th person on October 28, 2023. None of the detainees were named. Earlier that same month, guard Desiree Lowry, 27, was accused of smuggling contraband to 2 detainees and fired on October 8, 2023. In an oddly verbose statement, the sheriff's office said she exchanged her employee badge number for an inmate number. She exchanged her office title for an inmate title. She exchanged her blue uniform for an orange uniform. And then she exchanged her clean record for 4 felony charges. This is in Clayton County Jail, not Fulton County. Before that, jail nurse Geraldine Yara Moore was accused in July 2023 of dropping a plastic bag of Percocet pills in a trash bin for detainees to retrieve. The month before, contractor Ayanna Dixon was charged with swiping a detainee's credit card while shopping at Macy's. These are all people that work for Clayton County Jail. A fellow contractor, Soraya Ali, was also arrested and charged with being a party to a crime and obstructing or hindering law enforcement officers. In May 2023, another jail nurse, Jessica Castellanos, was arrested for smuggling contraband to detainees, as was guard Tabitha Clifton. That same month, guard Sean Hollinshead, 34, was arrested for a vicious attack on a detainee. What is going on in Clayton County Jail and Atlanta proper? 6 more guards accused but not indicted. So we got 8 and then 6 more, but these weren't indicted. That's 14. On July 13, 2023, a grand jury decided not, but you got to hear the story. A grand jury decided not to indict a half a dozen other former jail guards accused of causing the fatal heart attack of a mentally ill detainee they were attempting to restrain in November of 2022. Surveillance video recorded the 6 former guards. Listen to this. Elante Johnson, Randy Gaddy, Deontay McCauley, Fred Denson, Derek Doyle, and Danilo Jones as they piled on detainee Terry Lee Thurman, 38, who was moving toward a second-level balcony railing in what they called an apparent attempt to jump. So one of them tased the detainee, but all 6 remained on top of him for 10 minutes, according to the coroner's office. So they not only tased this guy when they thought he was attempting to jump from the balcony, they tased him, and then 6 of them piled on top of him and sat on him for 10 minutes. They suffocated him to death, declared civil rights attorney Thomas Reynolds, who is representing Thurman's survivors. He called the beatdown George Floyd 2.0, except there were 6 of them on top of Thurman for 16 to 18 minutes. And they stayed on top of him well after he was lifeless and stopped resisting. What is going on in this jail? Thurman had been in custody, you ain't gonna believe this, less than 1 hour for allegedly trespassing at an airport. So he got detained for trespassing at an airport, goes to jail in this Clayton County jail, and he ends up dead within an hour. Responding emergency personnel found him pulseless, and CPR was initiated. He died at the hospital the next day, November 29, 2022. The coroner subsequently ruled his death a homicide. But why, if the state coroner ruled it a homicide, they did not arrest the 6 correctional officers, police guards, but the coroner ruled it a homicide. There's a gap missing. But just a month before that, former Sheriff Victor Hill was found guilty of using excessive force on detainees he strapped into a restraint chair for lengthy periods. As PLN reported, Hill was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison in March 2023. This is the sheriff, Victor Hill. The abuse of detainees in the system is rampant and widespread at Clayton County Jail, Reynolds said. I mean, no other sheriff's department that I am aware of in the nation has had a former sheriff convicted of federal inmate abuse. Then they talk about more indictments in Camden County, which is right near it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the state, a trio of deputies working at the jail in Camden County got their own indictments on May 19th, 2023, just a year ago. A grand jury charged former sheriff's deputy Ryan Beagle and former jail guards Braxton Massey and Mason Garrett with misdemeanor battery and simple battery, plus a felony count of violating their oath of office for a violent encounter in September 2022 that injured another detainee. Jared Hobbs, 41, who is black, had been jailed on drug charges following a traffic stop when surveillance video captured the 2 guards and their fellow deputy, all of them white, as they charged Hobbs' cell and began punching him. They then put the injured detainee in a restrained chair and left him in solitary confinement without medical care. They are beating people indiscriminately inside this jail, said civil rights attorney Harry Daniels, who is representing Hobbs. He noted that the State Bureau of Investigation did not take up the case until he obtained the video and provided it to them. Sheriff Jim Proctor then fired the 3 guards in November of 2022. Zaire Ratliff, 23, another black client of Daniels, whose beating by a guard was captured on surveillance video in March of 2023, called the lockup a place where they make their own rules and do whatever they say goes. Charges pending against Hobbs were dropped in February 2023 by Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney Keith Higgins. They were dropped. He replaced disgraced former DA Jackie Johnson, who was indicted in September 2021 for showing favoritism to a white former employee and his son after they were accused of running down and fatally shooting a black jogger, Ahmaud Arbery, 25, in February of 2020. Remember, that was a huge case that made national news. So that DA got fired for showing favoritism to those 2 white people that were accused of killing Mr. Ahmaud Arbery. She wanted those 2 white men to get off. Johnson ultimately recused herself from the case, as did 3 more prosecutors with ties to the pair, Greg and Travis McMichael. Governor Brian Kemp then assigned Cobb County DA Jonette Holmes, who obtained convictions against both McMichaels, and they were sentenced to life in prison in August 2022. And an accomplice, William Roddy Bryan, was also convicted and sentenced to 35 years in the Arbery case. This is a complete example, and when I'm telling all of my viewers to please pay attention to your city and your state politics. As you know, in this Arbery case, the district attorney, Jackie Johnson, was showing favoritism to the 2 white men that committed this crime against that 25-year-old young man and killed him. She was committing favoritism towards the McMichaels, Greg and Travis. They had to change DAs, and ultimately they convicted them and gave them a life sentence, thankfully. But this also shows you, as I'm telling you, you have to see the temperament of your city and county jails, even if you're not committing a crime and have never been in trouble. We have to pay attention to what's going on in our cities as they are crumbling each and every day. Public safety is a real issue. Handling these crimes are a real issue. Making our judges and our state and city prosecutors accountable for handling cases in the right way, doing the right thing is of utmost importance. Hiring and vetting the right correctional officers who are overseeing these inmates and detainees is of utmost importance. We cannot have corrupt police officers on the streets, and we can't have corrupt correctional officers policing these detainees in jail. And you have a scenario here in Clayton County where almost 10 to 14 prison guards have been caught up in a chasm of chaos and criminality. As I said, in Fulton County, there have been at least 10 individuals that have died in the last year in Fulton County jail. What is going on in these jails? Where are we making these sheriffs accountable for managing these individuals when they're locked up? And many of these individuals are locked up for minor crimes. That earlier story I told you, the man that ended up dying because of 6 prison guards sitting on top of him for almost 20 minutes, he was detained for trespassing at an airport. Should he have been arrested? Probably. Do we know if he was going to do something very terrible at the airport? We don't know. But it's a minor crime. They caught it before it happened. He gets detained. And how does he die within 1 hour? What kind of chaos and corruption is taking place in Fulton County Jail, Clayton County Jail, which is all part of Atlanta proper? And we also know that there's a lot of stuff going on with the Fulton County DA's office. That's been all over the news with Fannie Willis. I'm not blaming her for this, but we have to make our politicians and our people in appointed positions that are representing our freedoms, our constitutional rights, we have to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Many of our cities are down hundreds of police officers that are needed to be hired. There's a shortage of correctional officers in our county, city jails, and our prisons. We need an uptick in those. Public safety is going amok in our cities, our states, and of course, inside our judicial and our prison and county jail system. This is a very sad situation. And for those who are committing crimes, you need to make sure that you do not end up in some of these jails like what is taking place in Clayton County Jail, Cook County Jail in Chicago. Here in St. Louis, you had what's called the city workhouse. For years, there was an abomination of all kinds of craziness that was taking place. You had a gladiator kind of situation where correctional officers were allowing detainees to fight each other in locked cells. Fortunately, and there was abuse. There was no air conditioning. It was excessively hot. There were health conditions that were going on in the workhouse. And finally, unfortunately, they ended up closing the St. Louis City Workhouse a couple of years ago. And in many instances, many detainees said the workhouse was worse than prison. What are we doing? Our city and our county jails are supposed to be a holdover for when you have your case to see how it's going to turn out, and either you're going to go to prison or you're going to be released. There shouldn't be a particular health hazard while you're waiting for a decision on your sentence. Tell me what you think about this straight out of Clayton County, where a number of prison guards have gotten arrested and have crossed the line from being an overseer of inmates and detainees to becoming inmates and detainees. Tell me what you think. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.